item number 8, earthquake rebuild pressure sewer, and we have a number of staff. Mark Christensen, I recognise.
And Simon Collin.
And Simon Collin. Thank you. Okay, well, let's start off with questions first. So has anyone, well, actually, would you like to present first, Mark? Or
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
Simon will just
Simon?
run through the paper.
Yeah, we've got 6 catchments here of varying sizes, part of the skirt rebuild, and we're seeking a decision of the rebuild technology to use. 5 of those catchments, skirt has recommended pressure sewer system for technical reasons, and they're the lowest cost. One of the catchments, skirt has recommended gravity. Also included in the report is the results of the consultation for all 6 catchments. Of those 6, 4 of the results of the consultation supports the skirt recommendation. For one of them, it's pretty evenly balanced, and for one, the consultation response was against the skirt recommendation. We're also seeking a decision about a possible alternative that's been put up for off-site tanks, whereby the owners would be asked to pay the difference in the cost between having a tank on-site as against off-site.
What is the what's the cost to the city in terms of ongoing maintenance to these facilities? I mean, we had a discussion about a week ago, and one of our staff members has one of these, and it costs him 3 hours well, it costs the city 3 hours of time for one sewer system to be put back into working order.
Madam Mayor, the allowance and the whole of life cost is around $150 per unit per year. And
well, I'm sorry, but 3 hours wouldn't be $150.
No, but that's averaged across the whole. For the one that is repaired, there will be a lot that aren't. So that has been benchmarked against international experience in Australia and in New Zealand, and that number is realistic.
So how do we? So yeah, I mean, what if that's not right?
Well, we have no reason to believe that it's not right. I mean, we're keeping track of...
Where did the costs fall if you're wrong? So if these have to be repaired more frequently, or that they're out of order more often...
The costs fall to the ratepayer, to the council.
Right. Yeah. Well, ratepayer, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Has anyone got any questions? Yanni?
I know that this decision's been delegated to this committee. I am concerned that to ensure that we've canvassed our community boards, so in the agenda workshop, the questions was asked, have we approached our community boards to see whether they've been getting areas and issues of concern? And so I just want to know if that's happened, and if not, is it possible that could happen before the 12th of June? And then if there's any hot spots, we're aware of it, and the full council makes the decision.
Well, we can't, on this recommendation, overturn a previous decision of the council. So, yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't know what you want to achieve.
Can I just comment on, I guess I do have concern that this issue goes back a long time for us as a new council too, back to when we started. And it seems to me pretty paramountly very important that we actually, to support residents, that we actually make a decision on this. I note in the report there's no significant opposition in this area, and I think these are examples where this council just needs to make a decision.
Jimmy and then David.
Thank you. I'm concerned the 8.7, the staff recommendation. I can understand what they mean. What's the rationale to offer the owners, option of paying the additional cost? Can you interpret?
It's possible, technically possible, to put the tanks in the berm outside the property. If you do that, there are additional costs associated with doing that. You have to put in a trafficable lid, and the laterals are longer, so that there is a cost associated with that. And the suggestion here is that if the owner didn't want the tank on their property, then they would be asked to pay for the difference in cost for putting it out on the street.
There's a kind of solar system and the gravity system. They are reluctant to install the solar system. That was the difference.
No, not a solar system, no.
So is that the, are you saying that the only additional cost will be the gravity lateral connecting the tank to the house?
The other issue is the connection of power. If the owner is willing to have the power connected to their house, then the only cost would be essentially the trafficable lid and a slightly longer lateral. But if the owner doesn't want the power connected to their house, then we would also have to put in a separate power supply and telemetry, and the cost would be considerably more.
Madam Mayor, under the with the pressure sewer, because the tank's on the private property, the property owner is actually getting some of their old gravity lateral replaced as part of the installation, because that becomes part of the network. The network effectively moves into the private property. If you take the tank outside the private property boundary, we would be requiring confidence that the private lateral left behind, which is the old lateral, is in good condition. And in a number of these places, in a case study that Skirt did, I think we found up to 40% of the laterals were damaged. So they would have to bear that cost through EQC and their insurers.
Right. I've got David.
Thank you. Look, I've been involved with some of these for some time, and we've got 6 catchments here that we're considering today. And look, I think with the exception of one of them, they are all relatively small catchments. And really, when we look at the response rate that has come back with some of even the really small ones, it's a bit of a no-brainer, I think, that we go ahead with some of these. I mean, you're talking sort of, some of them is only four residents there, 10 in another one. The biggest one is North New Brighton, which had 426. You had 60 or 70 responses there. Only one of them was, 4 of them were against it. And I think, we probably have to, at some stage, move forward, and we can't continually keep consulting. And I think, really in some of these areas, and no responses, probably in many instances, it's okay, let's go ahead with it. So look, I'm supportive of what the staff have done here. I'm very conscious of the fact that there's been a lot of consultation in these areas, and in some areas there has been some violent objection. But in what we're seeing here today, I think that there is general consensus on all of these, apart from the Macmillan Avenue one, where there was there's only five people involved, and 3 are against it and 2 are for it. So that's the only one that has any imbalance of those for and against. So I'm happy to see this project go through, and we have to start taking some action. So I'll be supporting the staff recommendation.
Pauline?
Thank you. Look, I'm just going back to 8.7 as well, so I'm quite concerned with that one. The thing is that do we want these things on our berms? They're going to make it more difficult for maintenance as well of the berm, plus visually. Secondly, are there people in the past who would have liked to have them on the berm and instead put them in their own property, and who would then, if we allow this, come to us and say, well, we'd like ours put out on the boom. And my third question is, and forgive me if I don't know this, but do we have a legal obligation to provide this? Do we have a legal obligation to provide this service?
We have a legal obligation to provide wastewater services.
So we've offered them a choice of having this on their land. The ones who say no, we're now saying you can put it on the boom.
That's an option that we're proposing. It's technically it's certainly not preferred that they go out on the berm.
But are we going to open the floodgates to people who would like to say, oh, well, I'd like to get mine off my property, I'd like mine put on the boom?
I think that's a distinct possibility. Currently, we've got about 1,300 already installed through the process that Skirt's done that are installed on the property. So we would expect there'd probably be some backlash from those people. I mean, the size of it, I don't know, but you could expect that we'd get some calls for people who are saying they wanted it to go on the berm.
The thing is, if we did start doing this, I mean, it's not visually that enhancing for our city to have this, in my view.
And at several public meetings, that point's been raised with the people who have attended those meetings.
So if we were to vote against allowing 8.7, where would it leave those people?
As is mentioned in the paper here, there is still the issue around the people who object to the process and don't want the pressure sewer system on their property. So a separate paper is being formulated to come to council shortly on that.
With a different option apart from 8.7?
With legal obligations and what's the process to move through in those circumstances.
Paul, you're next.
Thank you.
I understand we obviously have to do something about the sewer and issues with the deep channel type, but I have a concern around this. It looks like there's 10,900 properties, is that correct? That are affected? I'm looking at here.
In this report, there's about 360.
Okay. And only 10% have actually responded?
In terms of the consultation, the response varied between 0 and about 30%.
But an average about 10%. This is my figures. My issue is
10 or
around the
15.
St Luke says that 11 strongly opposed and there was 15 that actually agreed. So I would just like perhaps just in that particular one just to defer that one for a period so we can just do a bit more work there.
Well, the issue is we've talked to these in these areas a couple of times now. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the council will make the decision here, but we're not sure what value would come from further consultation process.
Of those 11, are they quite objectionable to having these things anywhere near their properties? That's really what I'm asking.
Any feedback?
We got a summary from Skirt saying that they disagreed or strongly disagreed. I'm not sure what the split of those 11 is. I mean, there's a formal objection process that is available to people who strongly disagree in any case, and that's under the Local Government Act. So that's a process that would be gone through for those that.
And those that do actually go through that process, what sort of outcome can they expect?
Of the ones that for which that has happened, about 30% their objection has been upheld.
And then what happens?
The tank is put on the street at council's or at Skirt's expense.
So these 11 people would be agreeable if it went on the boom?
That wasn't the question they were asked. They were asked whether they preferred the pressure sewer system in general.
Glenn?
So it was a very open question.
Okay.
Glenn?
Thank you. I apologise for missing part of this due to an urgent meeting, but my question is about 8.7, and I'm happy with the first half, and I note the Parklands catchments are still to come and another report is still to come, so I do note that. The first half of the question I'm happy with, that the option for having it in the berm can exist, but I'm struggling with the second half, that if that is possible, that ratepayers who already pay 100% in rates, which includes the provision of a wastewater service by their local council, are now going to have to pay over and above that for something which is always part of that 100% rate payment. So I've got a problem with that, and my question is that reasonable? I mean, they're actually having to pay more for something which other ratepayers, you know, but it's on public land. So on private land, the payment isn't there, no cost, moves over the boundary to public land, now they have to pay extra. And that's the bit I'm struggling with.
I'm getting the sense that this is an issue that needs a little bit more technical detail and work on it. And I'm wondering whether we could deal with the recommendations 8.1 to 8.6 so that the work can be got on with, and that we can, with 8.7, actually address that next week with some additional information. Would that be useful for councillors?
Madam Mayor, I was just about to suggest that.
Well, the Chief Executive got in my ear before you did, so...
And perhaps 8.7 could come back with the legal position on those who don't want them.
Yeah, that would be good. Yanni?
Look, I understand the need to keep things moving, but I am...
Sorry, you weren't the next person, Andrew. You were on 8.7? Right, Yanni.
But I do have real strong concerns over St Luke's, and I think it would be really good for the community board to facilitate a meeting there of interested local people, given that that is really split down the middle, that community, for the ones that responded, and do some more work just trying to understand what the issues are. So I'm happy to support the other ones going through, but I would ask that if we could just defer 8.1, that is the one that I know several of the local elected members have had concerns expressed to them about, and I think it would be good to be able to be a bit more proactive in that space at the local community board level.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea of deferring that to next week as well, but that would, you know, require some pretty quick movement on people, eh?
I'm not sure that we could come back by next week, and the legal report, when's it coming? I don't think it's next week.
No, it won't be.
Well, in terms, I mean, that is the largest catchment, and it has the most, you know, dispute. So, I mean, is there an issue with deferring that for, for the... Yeah, but there's no, it's not, yeah.
People object in North New Brighton.
You know, the mere fact that, you know, you've got 124 contacts in the area and only 26 of them have bothered to respond suggests to me that the other 100 don't mind one way or the other, don't care one way or the other.
Assumption.
So there's a lot of people that actually have moved, like people have moved out. There's people that have different languages. There's quite a strong sort of island community around this area. So I just think...
Yeah, only we could debate and consult for weeks and weeks and weeks on different things of language, people moved out. We've got to make a decision somewhere along the line.
All right. Well, look, I mean, but what we can do this by way of resolution. So you're moving, David, that we resolve to adopt 8.1 to 8.6 with a further report back on 8.7, including the legal provisions. And do I have a seconder for that position? Jamie? Jamie Goff. Okay. And Yanni would like to move that we why don't we just simply deal with 8.1 separately? So we'll have a separate vote on 8.1.
Great.
So, right, so I'll put 8.1, so this is just 8.1, and I think probably the easiest thing to do is to actually have we got the system set up for voting? So if we can just vote yes or no to that first. Eh?
Defer it for what?
Just from the delivery perspective, I'm trying to understand what are we deferring to do so that we come out of this with a clear task that we can actually report as achieved or not achieved.
That Paul and I will facilitate a local meeting in that catchment. We've had a number of people have raised concerns with us about wanting more information, wanting more of an understanding, and we've chosen this system. And I think the idea behind having a community board facilitated meeting is to enable people to share their concerns and for us to actually understand what those concerns are. Given that the questions was raised today, we couldn't really get a breakdown of what those concerns were.
And then what?
Yeah, happy to bring it back straight to this committee or to council. So it's possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's,
Yeah, by the end of the month. I mean, seriously, I mean, that's what I was asking before. Does it matter if we take this one catchment and allow for a little bit more of a conversation with the community? I don't know if you've had any public meetings in St Luke's.
There was one public meeting in Boston very early on, which I attended.
Yeah.
And it was useful, but that was almost 2 years ago. So given that we've gone through a new consultation phase, which hasn't had a legal member involved or community
Yeah.
involved, I just think this is one catchment which is clearly divided in the feedback we've got. So let's try and
All right. Well, why don't you move, Yanni, that 8.1 be deferred and reported back to council by the end of the month.
So, and with that, we would, with the view that we would then make a decision.
Yeah.
30 days effectively.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I'm actually all right with that, but I just don't want to delay things any further.
Yeah.
You'll actually find it will be more delay if you move ahead and you've got people objecting. So the less objections you have, the quicker it is to get a system.
No, it's been through the objections phase. This is getting on with the job. Anyway, so